Joe Rogan has responded to the controversy surrounding his interview with Jack Dorsey. For those that aren't familiar, Joe Rogan interviewed Jack Dorsey, which you're watching right now, and look at that ratio. 63,000 thumbs down, about 10,000 thumbs up. The issue is that many people felt Joe didn't actually press Jack Dorsey on anything. In my opinion, I watched a decent amount of it and then stopped, I think, around halfway through because, first and foremost, and I'm not saying this to be disrespectful to Joe or anything, I was bored. You know, usually when I watch Joe's podcasts, it's like, man, you smoke some pot, sit back, and you're like, whoa, that's crazy. You know, the Elon Musk thing was crazy. Elon Musk tried to smoke weed, didn't actually inhale. In this instance, it seemed like Joe didn't want to get too into it, I guess. Like, he did bring up Kathy Griffin calling for the doxing of Covington kids, and then all of a sudden Jack just changes the subject. And Joe did nothing. And so I was like, come on, man. You know what? Look, as I stated in my last video, we are better off with the interview than without it, but people are disappointed. Now, Joe has responded twice, and it looks like he's going to have him back on. But there's a lot of stuff we got to clear up. First, one of the issues was that comments got deleted. Mark Dice tweeted, "Why was Alex Jones banned?" And then points out that Alex Jones got banned from Twitter because he was basically confronting Oliver Dorsey of CNN. And he said, "I reposted this because so many of the top comments said they couldn't see it anymore, so you see this." A comment from Sargon was removed. A bunch of comments got removed. A lot of people believe that Joe was actually deleting them. I don't think that's true. I think it was likely activists flagging them and YouTube's system automatically removed them. But the reason why I would also challenge that idea is because Mark Dice's new comment is still there. Suspect. Would I believe Joe Rogan or somebody working for him deleted top comments? No, that would seem weird. But at the same time, why is Mark Dice's comment 3 days later not been removed? If it was an algorithm removing it, then his comment should have been removed again, right? Well, Joe's responded, and I want to make sure I have this in the right order. So this was 2 days ago, this was 1 day ago, so this is the first one. I don't know why it's not loading. He said, "I had Jack Dorsey, the CEO of Twitter, on the podcast Friday, and many people felt I didn't grill him hard enough on Twitter censoring right-wing voices." Full stop. Twitter isn't just censoring right-wing voices. They're challenging anti-establishment voices. They're propping up the establishment. This is one of the things that I find particularly worrisome in the narrative. Yes, Twitter is biased against conservatives, but for the most part, they're biased in favor of establishment journalists. Not too long ago, like 50 or so left-wing activists, like Occupy Wall Street types, got banned abruptly without notice or warning, and no one came to their defense. This pisses me off. Some of these people I think are awful people. They spread lies about me. They cause harm to my business and my career. They literally tried to get me killed. I still believe they should not have been removed. Now, slander, libel, and things, they're wrong. They're wrong. But what's worrisome to me is that Twitter purged a bunch of anti-establishment, anti-interventionist left-wing activists without notice, without reason, accused them essentially of being bots, and no one came up to defend their free speech. We didn't see the regressive leftists. We didn't see mainstream journalists say anything, nothing. And of course, conservatives won't defend them. But it's still alarming that Twitter is acting in this way. They're just entirely biased in favor of mainstream establishment. And because conservative media isn't CNN, it isn't NBC, it's not Jimmy Fallon or Seth Meyers, they get the short end of the stick. But let's read on. My intention going into the podcast was to talk to him about that, but also to talk to him about the responsibilities that come with managing worldwide conversation with a platform that no one ever saw coming. The other idea I want to discuss was what possible new technologies could be the next version of social media. I asked him about censorship, but some people on the right felt that I didn't go after him hard enough. Some people, like whoever wrote this article, think I'm right-wing. He said, "I'm not, and I don't even think anyone who has paid attention to anything I've said believes that." No, I believe Joe's actually social libertarian. So close to where I am, but leaning more towards socialism. I think Joe's pretty, I don't want to accuse him of being a socialist, but I think he's pretty in favor of social policy. So yeah, he says, "It seems like someone wanted a good controversial clickbaity title for the article regardless of whether or not it was accurate. As for the interview, I asked the questions I wanted to ask, and although his answers on some of them were vague, I felt like I got out of him whatever I was going to get at without being too confrontational. There have also been talks of us editing the videos and deleting disparaging YouTube comments. That's not true. The video effed up while we were filming, and the TriCaster crashed. As far as I know, Jamie put it all back together. As for the YouTube comments, we don't delete those. I don't know how it works, but I suspect there's some form of what Dorsey talked about with Twitter, where machine learning downvotes certain perspectives or what they deem offensive or rude comments. What definitely isn't is Jamie or anyone else from my team deleting things. I definitely think there's a discussion to be had about censoring comments, though through computer programs or manual deleting. But I want you folks to know we're not responsible for any of that. I do my best. And if I didn't fulfill some of your expectations, I can understand. Honestly, I think I learned more from negative reactions than from positive ones, and I truly appreciate having a public review of those conversations because it's part of how I get better at this, at this S. So I believe this may be the most, like the worst ratio or the most downvoted video Joe's ever done. I'm not entirely sure, but I want to point something out. Joe, it's my understanding, grilled Sargon pretty heavily. Like when Sargon was on with him, Joe pushed back and actually made some disparaging remarks about how Sargon was like obsessed over this one feminist and things like that. And I don't think the criticism is unfair. He's allowed to be a critic. But where was that criticism with Jack Dorsey? He also pushed back on Barry Weiss. He gave pushback to Candace Owens. Where was that pushback on Jack Dorsey? So what am I going to say? Like, I'll point out once again, I really would find it strange if Joe actually went and deleted some of these comments because Sargon's comment was kind of innocuous. Jack Dorsey said everyone has a right to social media. That was a bold-faced lie. He doesn't believe that. His platform purges people for no reason. I love pointing to CJ Pearson and Jesse Kelly as perfect examples of this. But let's talk about Milo Yiannopoulos, who was accused of brigading Leslie Jones, and then literally, when Kathy Griffin targets a private individual, their school, their business, repeatedly he does nothing. And when Joe asks him, Jack changed the subject. I was livid. And Joe didn't chase after it. Joe didn't give pushback. It's not about censoring conservative voices. It's about the fact that Jack Dorsey is a duplicitous snake who lies. Anyway, get me on a tangent. Sargon commented, okay? Sargon said, if you believe people have a right to social media, then you can't ban people. That comment is gone. Do I think Joe deleted it? That'd be weird. But at the same time, as I mentioned, how is it that Mark Dice's new comment wasn't purged too? If Mark Dice was flagged by the algorithm, then Mark Dice would be flagged by the algorithm again. If it's activist flagging content, then why would they stop now? And Mark Dice's comment from 3 days ago is still live. I just don't believe it. But Joe responded a second time. Good news for everyone that was annoyed that we didn't cover censorship and deplatforming enough on the podcast with Jack Dorsey, because he's offered to come back on again. I'm going to take the criticism to heart and research all the high-profile cases on the right and on the left, and any instances that might be viewed as double standards. Anything in particular you think is important, please leave a mention in the comments, and I'll have someone make a list. One thing I really liked that Jack said was that he felt that the ability to communicate online was a right, and that we all should have, a right that we all should have. Maybe there can be a road to redemption for people that have been banned. I'll keep you folks posted as to when we work out the details and the date. This is good news. This is good. And this is why, even after something like this, I like Joe Rogan. I like his show. For many of you who are new to my channel, you may not know that I actually had beef with Joe Rogan for a little while. It happened when, after Occupy Wall Street, Joe invited me on the podcast, and me being a young upstart was all excited and was like, oh my God, I have to go on the Joe Rogan show. And this was back in, 2012, end of 2011. I flew, I think it was 2012. I can't remember the years. But I flew out. Maybe it was the end of 2012. I flew out, and at the last minute, he canceled on me. And I said, you know what? These things happen. It sucks. I jumped the gun. I flew out. I wanted to go on that show. And then next year, he tweets at me again, come on the show. This time, I say, okay, now we're going to do it. Confirmed. It was confirmed. I flew out. The last minute he canceled on me. You know what? For whatever reason he canceled, I'll say this. I was pissed. I'm like, dude, come on, twice now, back to back. But I also am the kind of person that recognizes Joe owes me no favors. Now, I can now mention that Joe and I have totally, there's no beef. It's like, the way I see it, it's like, it's Joe's business. He doesn't owe me anything. Am I pissed that I flew out there and then he canceled on me? Yes. But that's not his responsibility. I chose to fly out. I took that risk. That risk is on me. And it was actually recently Joe invited me out to one of his shows where I got to meet him. And I think he's a really good dude. So I don't think he's doing anything nefarious. What it really comes down to is I think that when it came to this interview, you've got someone like Jack Dorsey, who's one of the most influential social media guys in the world. And Joe's got to make sure he plays it safe. I respect that. I do. A lot of people are mad saying like, dude, that's not cool. Like, you can't do that. I understand. But I think Joe didn't do enough. So I think he deserves all the criticism for not pressing hard enough. Absolutely. Like I mentioned, I was pissed. But I also want to point out, don't assume that someone like Joe's going to be perfect. We're better off that he did the interview. And now we can see that Joe, in my opinion, is at least a man of a certain degree of integrity. And I want to see this episode. I want to see him grill him. And I want you all to recognize the left does get banned on Twitter. The bias on Twitter isn't just against conservatives. It's pro-establishment, pro-propaganda, pro-mainstream media. They allow like NBC News people and like Vox and BuzzFeed to say ridiculous things. The people on the left who challenge the system, the people on the left, yes, who don't like mainstream media, they're gone. They got banned too. It's an establishment bias, and it's scarier than just conservative bias. It really is. When the conservatives get banned, the conservatives, scream and changes happen. But if they get rid of those who truly challenge the establishment, who don't have support, then we're walking in a man. I do not like censorship. We need to make sure alternative voices, marginalized communities, are allowed to communicate on these platforms too. Do I believe that Twitter mostly is targeting conservatives? Sort of, yes. I think the mainstream bias will still protect some anti-establishment left-wing voices. But I hope this is stressed, and I hope this comes up on the next episode they do. There are Occupy Wall Street accounts that were banned for no reason. And it happened on Facebook too. And no one got their back. No one did. Because the right doesn't like them, because they're, Occupy Wall Street types, but the establishment left doesn't like them either. The regressive left does not like them either. I certainly do not like them. Don't get me, these are some of the worst of the worst. Posting lies about me, trying to get my accounts banned and all that stuff. But banning them without warning, with no recourse, for no reason, I'm not okay with. I get it. Maybe they got banned because they spread fake news, so they spread fake news about me, but not all of them. Some of them were just left-wing, anarcho-journalist types. And it affects everybody. So anyway, I'm going to get out of here. Thanks for hanging out. I've been having microphone problems all day. I don't know what the problem is. I got to go buy a new one. So I'll see you tomorrow on this channel at 10 a.m. Adios.